What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Exactly 1 year ago, when I moved into my brand new shop, I made a shop tour video. So today I'm going to make another shop tour video and show you everything that's changed. So let's get started. So just like last year, we'll start outside of my shop. I'll show you everything out here and then we'll work our way inside. So if you remember back to last year, I just had a ton of wood and stuff just piled up against the outside of my shop. Since then, we've built this big covering over my shop. It extends out about 8 feet, and I've built a lot of racks over here. I built racks on the back, and that's where I'm going to be storing a lot of my wood. And so before we walk in, I'm just going to give you guys this little overview here so that way you have a good idea of where everything is in relation to other things. So when you walk into my shop on the left, you'll see the Wen 12.5-inch thickness planer. It works amazing. This is the same planer that I had last year. I've never had any issues with it at all. Only thing I've had to do is change blades every couple of weeks. I think I've run this thing for thousands and thousands of hours. No problems at all with the planer. Absolutely love it. I built it on this little roll-around cart so I could just roll it outside of my shop and I didn't have to worry about any of the mess inside of my shop. I built this roll-around cart like 3 years ago, and I really am not happy with how it's built. It's kind of junky, but it is very, very sturdy, so that's, I guess, all that matters. I do this year want to build a brand new cart that's got drawers or cabinets or something that's not just open space like this one. With my shop being as small as it is, I think storage underneath my planer cart would be a really, really good use of space. And you'll also notice that underneath my planer cart, I've got this little air compressor. I pulled this bad boy out of the trash a couple of weeks ago. Didn't think it was going to work. I came home, plugged it in, and this thing holds pressure. So I'm going to start using this in my shop, and I think I need to build something on the wall to where I can hold this in there, or something to mount it on the wall. And I also need to get some new attachments for it. Right now, all I've got is this one for pumping up tires. I don't know if this is going to be big enough to put like a little spray gun or something on. I would love to be able to put a spray gun on this, but I know it'll be strong enough to put a little nozzle on and be able to, blow dust out of the shop or do whatever I need to do with it. So I'm very happy that I was able to save this from the trash, and I'm going to get some use out of it. Above the planer, we've got this little cabinet that I built out of some scrap walnut. I'll take you guys in a little bit closer and show you everything that's inside. So on top of the cabinet, I've just got some random stuff. I've got some epoxy pigments. I got my bandsaw fence. I have some CA glue here. Down here, I've got bandsaw blades, accelerators for the CA glue. This is where I keep my drill. And then over here, I've just got some pocket screws. And I have a big pine panel glued up to make some doors for that cabinet. I just haven't got around to doing it yet. So when you keep moving through my shop from the planer, you come to my lathe and grinder stand. Underneath, it's got storage for bowl blanks and wood. And up above, it's got drawers where I can keep sandpaper and pen turning supplies and pen blanks and small stuff like that. Up above, it's got this grinder that I'm going to get a Wolverine sharpening system and install underneath of it so I can sharpen my lathe tools. And on the right here, we've got my Jet 10x15 mini wood lathe. I bought this lathe 2 years ago and I have had no issues with it at all. The only thing actually that I did need to do is, in the past year, I've had to replace the switch. Behind my lathe, you'll notice that I have all my lathe tools in my little lathe tool holder. I have a video about that. I'll link that up in the cards right now if you want to go watch it. But I have all my lathe tools in my lathe tool holder, and behind those I have this fan, and I can open my window if it gets dusty in my shop, and I can cut the fan on, and I can get a little bit of fresh air in the shop. But usually in the summer when I'm woodworking, I just keep my fan on all the time, and I keep my window open constantly. And to keep moving around my shop, we've got the big Delta dust collector next to my lathe stand, and this thing works amazing. If I were to guess, it's like an 8-gallon bag underneath. I bought this longer hose to put on it so that I can reach all the way across my shop, and it's a little bit underpowered for what I like. I wish it had a little bit more suction and it was a little bit more powerful, but it was free, so I can't really complain. Above the dust collector, I've got this little shelf cabinet thing, and I don't like it. I've never liked it. It's made out of particle board. It's extremely heavy, and it gets covered in dust. Everything in it gets covered in dust. So eventually I want to replace it and make one just like that over there and put doors on it, make it really nice. But again, when I was setting up my shop, I didn't really have time or anything like that to make some really nice shelves. So eventually I'm going to replace this with something better. But for now, it works okay. And up here, I've just got some common finishes that I use on the lathe. Got a little glue bottle, And up above on this shelf, I've got all my jigs and templates and all that stuff. And if you remember back to the other shop tour video, this is where my bandsaw used to sit. When I got this dust collector, I had to do a little bit of rearranging, so this is where the dust collector sits, where the old bandsaw used to sit, and now my bandsaw is over here, so let me show you that. My new Rockwell Delta 14-inch bandsaw sits where my old router table used to be. I got rid of the router table because I just didn't see a need for it, and it took up too much space in my shop, so I replaced it with this Rockwell Delta bandsaw. If you remember what I had before, I had a 10-inch Craftsman saw. It was a 1/4 horsepower, very, very underpowered. This was a huge upgrade. I've got a lot more cutting throat, I've got a lot more cutting thickness, and this is a full horsepower motor, so I've got a lot more power under the hood. I've got an entire video dedicated to this bandsaw, so if you want to watch that, click the card right up here and go check that video out. And then up above to the right of my bandsaw, I've got this giant cabinet. This was here in the shop when we bought the house, and I've just kind of used it. The top drawer is not organized. The bottom 2 shelves are organized for the most part. I've got latex gloves, hot glue sticks, drill bits. I've got tabletop clips, more drill bits up here. I've got lubricating oil, sockets, and just other random stuff that I don't use terribly often, but I still use it. And up here is just kind of a big mess, so we're just going to move over that. And then finally we move around to the main bench. If you remember back to my last shop tour video, I had a massive 2x4 pressure treated like big workbench that was here when we bought the shop that just took up way too much space for my little shop, and it just was way too unorganized. Stuff just got thrown underneath and thrown on top. So I built this workbench in December. It's a right angle workbench that fits in my corner. It serves as a home for my new Delta drill press, which I just picked up, which I absolutely love. And it's got drawers, and it's got cabinets underneath it. And underneath in the cabinets, I store things that I don't use very often at all. I've got my big jug of mineral oil, which I just use to refill my smaller bottle. I've got my big gallon of Titebond 3, and then back there, I have my Total Boat thick set epoxy. In the drawers, I just keep things like circle templates, tape. I got a scraper in here. And on the other side of my workbench from my drill press, I have this little vise here. Comes in super, super handy when you need it. Another thing that I keep on my big workbench over here is this little box that I made out of CA glue. Just quickly whipped it up out of some 1/8 inch plywood. Every time I've got extra epoxy from an epoxy pour, I will pour it into this box, and when it's full, or close to being full, I'll put it on the lathe and I'll turn a really cool bowl or something out of it. Up here, I keep my hammers and my mallets, and if you remember to the last video, I just had a board with some notches cut out in it, and I could just slide it on from the front. I did not like that because they constantly were falling off. So I switched to just a board with some big holes drilled in it, and I just drop them in there like so, and they can't fall out this way. Down below the hammers and the mallets, I've just got my screwdrivers and a board on the wall with some holes. Not very fancy, but it works. I also would turn this little pencil holder out of a little chunk of figured ash that I got, and this just keeps all my pencils from being thrown all over the workbench and just being stuck in random places. I always know where pencils are, and I can always get to them very easily. So moving around the shop from my big workbench over here, we come back around to this other wall here, which is where I moved my clamp rack. Now this clamp rack is the same clamp rack that I had in my very first shop tour video. I've just moved it from, like I said, above the router table to over here above the miter saw, kind of between the miter saw stand and the main workbench. It holds all the bar clamps that I have, and it holds all of the spring clamps and quick clamps that I've got. It works really well, and I think I'm going to have to build a new one soon because this one is starting to fall apart. Some of the pieces between the bar clamps are starting to fall apart, and I'm also gaining more and more clamps, so I'm running out of space. And then over here underneath the clamp rack, just to the right of the main workbench, I have my Craftsman 12-inch miter saw. This is the only miter saw I've ever owned, so I've probably put 10,000 cuts through it. I've got a Diablo Freud blade in there, which probably needs to get sharpened. And I've replaced this insert probably about 6 times already just because it's gotten chewed up. You can cut anything all the way up to 45 degrees on it. It's been a very, very good saw for me. I haven't had any trouble with it at all, and it just keeps on going. It's the same saw that I've had, like I said, for, oh gosh, probably 6 years now, and I love it. I don't plan on getting a new one anytime soon. And when I built this main workbench over here back in December, I made sure to build it the same height as my miter saw so I can just run long stock all the way down. And my table saw is also at the same height as my miter saw, so I can run boards the entire length of my shop without any issue. Over here is just a simple cabinet that I made out of plywood from my local Home Depot. My local Home Depot's got this big pile called the coal pile. Everything in there is 70% off, usually because it's bent or there's some cracks in it, but I just buy that wood up and use it for shop projects like this. Inside, I just keep random stuff, dust masks, safety glasses, Allen keys. I got like a PSI gauge, I got some LED lights, some little clips, and rubber feet. I got my Craig jig up here, and it just keeps everything nice and clean and away from the dust. And moving on to the last corner of my shop, we have my Ryobi 10-inch table saw. I've had this saw for 6 years, the same amount of time that I've had the miter saw, and it's been a great saw for the 6 years. But now that I'm getting more advanced in my woodworking and I'm wanting to do more techniques and stuff, there's a lot of stuff that this saw doesn't have that maybe a new saw would have. The saw doesn't have miter slots, so I can't make a miter sled. The fence isn't very tall, so I can't really make any sort of spline jigs or any sort of jigs for the saw. The blade doesn't rise very high, so I can't really cut thick material. And the fence, I don't like the fence at all. It doesn't lock in very tight, and it's, like I said, it's just too short. And if I got a new saw, I could get one that's got a lot more power so I can really cut through those dense hardwoods, which a woodworker generally uses. But overall, it's been a great saw, and I got it at the same time as my miter saw, like I said, 6 years ago. And it's been a good saw for me. It's done everything that I needed to do. And directly in the middle of my shop, I have this big white cabinet here, which has got drawers and cabinets on either side. I'll show you that in a minute. But for now, this is my home for my Wen 4x36-inch belt/disc sander. I think this is one of my favorite tools in the shop just because of its versatility. I got this thing about 2 years ago, and it's been a complete lifesaver in my shop. I can sand the inside of curves with the end of the belt. I can sand the outside of curves with the disc. I can sand things flat with the top part. It's just such a versatile tool, and I can't imagine working without it. And like I said, we got cabinets under here, and I pretty much just throw all my power tools under there. We've got the circular saw, belt sander, random orbit sander, rigid router. Under there, I've got just some cases of different random screws and nails. I got my router bits. And over here, the drawers, and I pretty much just use them to store sandpaper and hot glue guns. Guys, thank you so much for watching this week's video. It's been incredible how far my shop has come in the past year, and I just enjoy spending time out here. It's my passion, and it's my hobby. Guys, please be sure to follow me on Instagram, Seth's Custom Creations. I'll put the name on the screen right there. There's a lot of behind-the-scenes content and stuff that doesn't get put up on my YouTube channel over on my Instagram. Also, be sure to subscribe to the channel if you're not already subscribed. There's a lot of really good content coming up you're not going to want to miss, so make sure you get subscribed and hit that notification bell. And lastly, guys, I've got a brand new website, so please be sure to go and check out my website. I've got products on there that I've made, bowls and cutting boards, all sorts of stuff. I've got more information about me and a lot of other stuff you may be interested in, so please go check out the website. The link will be in the description down below. Thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next week.